There will now be an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. You may be seated. The Secretary will read the order.
Debate on vote number 7, Public Works Appropriation Bill.
I want to invite all the honourable members to make use of the podium here in front in order to address this extended public committee. I now call upon the Honourable the Minister of Public Works to introduce his budget vote. The Honourable Minister.
Thanks, Honourable Chairperson, Honourable Members of the Cabinet and the MECs, the Honourable Chairperson and the members of the Portfolio Committee, the Honourable Members of Parliament. Let me also recognize present here the Chairpersons and CEOs of the public entities and the professional councils, the members of the Audit and the Risk Management Committee, the DG and the senior management of the Department of Public Works, as well as the heads of the departments of the provincial departments, the representatives of the construction and the property industries, as well as the leaders of labor, the participants from the DPW's Young Professional Training Scheme and the EPWP programs, and two pastors who are representing the churches, Pastor Matebula of the Hope Restoration Church and Pastor Mahlangu of the Christian Church of the Zion. Members of my family, and particularly my wife, distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen, welcome. My budget vote input seeks to cover the following: to present the budget vote and commitments for 2014-15 to account for what we have done as a department over the last year, that's 2013-14, to provide a progress report to the House on the turnaround strategy for public works, and to briefly share with the House my vision for the next 5 years of this administration. To this end, a detailed account document will be distributed for the information of honourable members. Today, Deputy Minister, Honourable Jeremy Cronin, will report on the following areas, which is driving the policy, legislation, and the public entities, as well as the expanded public works program. In the time available, I will provide a strategic overview of where we are as a department in two parts. Firstly, to map out at a high level our vision and priorities for the next 5 years of this administration, and to provide a progress report on the turnaround strategy for the Department of Public Works. On the turnaround strategy, during 2012, with the support of the National Treasury, we've developed a 7-year plan to rebuild the Department of Public Works. The plan envisages 3 phases, phase 1 being the stabilization, 2, efficiency enhancement, and 3, sustainable development. On phase 1, on the stabilization phase, which was necessitated by the poor performance by the DPW and the lack of the adequate management and financial controls, culminating in 8 years of adverse audit findings, as well as the high levels of fraud and corruption evidence in the reports of the Public Protector and the SIU. We are 2 years in the 7-year plan, and I can report that we have stabilized the core business areas, the leases, the immovable asset register, and the finances. On the lease review, with the National Treasurer, we've conducted an audit of 2,162 properties. These are leased in from the private sector, and we introduced more robust systems to manage the leasing portfolio. The department has overhauled the SCM processes in the leasing environment and negotiated with the National Treasury a special dispensation to fast-track the re-signing of the expired leases. As a result, we were able to renegotiate leases downwards in 50% of the cases. The Treasury dispensation places 5.5% ceiling on the escalation of the leases below inflation, with further savings to the state. The audit also highlighted leases where fraud and collusion is suspected, empty buildings we were paying for. These have been flagged for forensic investigation. In the past, poor management in the leasing environment also resulted in the contraventions of the Occupational Health and Safety Act. Inspections will now be prioritized on an annual basis. On the stabilization, or on another area of stabilization, is the immovable asset register. Simply put, for the first time in the history of South Africa, the Public Works has produced a reliable register of state properties, which is 95% complete. The National Public Works accounts for 107,000 properties on some 30,000 land parcels. 95% of these assets have been physically verified. This is a game changer. We now have a better idea of what we own, and we can start to use this massive property portfolio to leverage economic development and job creation. I need to mention that in cleaning up and developing the immovable asset register, as the department, we have cooperated with the Department of Rural Development and Land Reform and the Surveyor General. We have also worked closely with the provincial departments of public works through MINMEC to sign or to assign custodianship of the land parcels. On Clean Audit Project, the other major stabilization project was to urgently stabilize the finance and the supply chain management environment. For 2012-2013 financial year, the audit outcome of the department's main account improved from a disclaimed opinion to a qualified audit opinion. The qualifications that affected the department's main account were reduced from 8 to 3. The audit outcomes of the property management trade entity also improved considerably. Although the disclaimed opinion remained in 2012-13, the number of qualifications reduced from 12 to 4. The team is committed and expecting to further improve the audit outcomes in 2013-14. The employment of the 64 unemployed commerce graduates as interns has been a success story of the Clean Audit Project. They are now eligible to participate in the internal recruitment processes. A formal skills transfer program and the on-job training on the revised processes in finance and the supply chain management have been implemented to embed the stabilization initiatives. In relation to irregular expenditure, all transactions were visited for the period 2009-10 to 2012-13. The exercise entailed trawling through 1.5 million payment batches and tender files. There are no shortcuts, colleagues, to the good governance and compliance. All irregular expenditure and fruitless and wasteful expenditure identified will be investigated and action taken. I'm very pleased to announce that compliance with the President's injunction to pay service providers within 30 days has greatly improved. This is a very obvious way in which government departments can support the small and emerging businesses. On phase 2 of the turnaround, which is efficiency enhancement, this is where we seek to improve the business model and processes of the department. This will be the focus of the next 5 years. Critically, this involves the following strategies and actions. First, implementing a structure which aligns with the mandate of the department, principally the operationalization of the property management trade entity in line with the earlier cabinet decisions to ring-fence and professionalize the property business. This massive property portfolio, which is 7 times the size of Growth Point, includes 73,000 properties used by government departments and some 30,000 properties largely unutilized. The properties of this PMT include, at a strategic level, to advertise and hunt property professionals from the private sector to be employed on the performance-based contracts, to consolidate the improvement of the lease environment, to improve the maintenance and the security of the state assets through the National Infrastructure Maintenance Strategy, to establish the best practice and norms and standards for maintenance of the state property, to progressively reduce leasing or leasing in favor of rehabilitating our own stock for occupation by government. Currently, 2,700 buildings are leased at the cost of 3.2 billion. To work with the emerging black estate agents to market our unutilized stock and to manage the leases. To seek public partnerships with other entities already working in the property and management space to develop the state assets. In relation to the PMTE and the management of the state properties, the vision is as follows: to ring fence, better manage, maintain optimal use this state property portfolio to build value and to bring savings to the state, as well as other socio-economic benefits, particularly the job creation and empowerment, whilst improving service to the client departments. The second focus of the organizational development in the department is to fully operationalize the government risk and compliance branch to drive compliance and the anti-fraud and corruption campaigns. In 2012, I announced that the turnaround strategy stood on two legs: improving the way we do business as DPW and combating fraud and corruption. In the stabilization phase, we depended heavily on the expertise of the SIU to investigate fraud and corruption. 95 cases were referred to the SIU for investigation, of which 75 have been finalized. This resulted in disciplinary action against 50 employees, 23 of which resigned before the commencement of the disciplinary hearing. Of the remaining 27, 5 received final written warnings, 7 were dismissed, and 15 cases are still pending. Civil action has been instituted against employees and contractors in 8 matters, mainly claims for damages or action to have voidable lease agreements set aside. For serious cases, we will continue to use the SIU. However, the establishment of this GRC branch marks a milestone, embedding capacity in-house to detect and prosecute wrongdoing and developing systems to quash the opportunities for those who wish to engage in fraud and corruption. The branch is tackling a backlog of 250 internal cases reported since 2009-2010. Of the 158 completed investigations, 93 disciplinary charges have been recommended and 15 criminal cases reported to the police. This GRC branch is also driving proper process of strategic planning, incorporating risk management, performance management, and the process re-engineering. An important objective is to develop a new service delivery model in line with the DPSA's requirements, which is based on the needs of the client's departments and enhancing the performance of the department. In the construction project management environment, lack of planning over years has led to underspending on the budget, as well as the cost overruns and delays on individual projects. This is being addressed through the greater coordination between the branches and units along the construction value, the establishment of the joint technical teams to liaise directly with the client departments, and the introduction of the proper planning methodology in the form of the infrastructure delivery management system. The department has also developed an ICT, which is an information and communication technology plan to be implemented as part of the second phase of the turnaround. Human resource management and organizational development. It's not enough to have a good plan. You also need the right people, committed, willing to embrace change, together with the right mix of skills. At EXCO level, the key management positions of the DG, the Chief Financial Officer, and the DDG Corporate Services were filled. An acting DDG was seconded from the State Security Agents to commission the newly established governance, risk and security branch. We are addressing the lack of the technical and the professional capacity as follows: in sourcing skills during the stabilization phase, This necessary spending on consultants will reduce as we build the capacity in-house, recruiting some 45 professionals and technical positions have been filled to date. Developing our own skills, the department's school program to improve math and science teaching and learnings support learners from disadvantaged communities. Together with the CETA, the Construction, Education and Training Authority department this year, we have awarded 132 bursaries to students enrolled in the built environment undergraduate and postgraduate programs. And we are growing our own skills. We are tying those when they graduate to come back to public works. Currently, there are about 1,149 participants in the various training programs of the department. We are resuscitating the workshops to improve the quality of the service to the clients and to develop technical skills and capacity. In collaboration with the private sector companies, some 293 artisans are being trained by the department during the 2014-15. On phase 3, which will be sustainable development, this is where we fundamentally review the mandate, the purpose and the responsibilities of public works across the different spheres of government, culminating into the Public Works Act, which we do not have currently. You will hear from the Deputy Minister. Let me summarize where we are with the turnaround. As a matter of urgency, we are consolidating the stabilization work. As the main focus of the next 5 years, we seek to enhance the efficiency of our current business operations, employing better planning, performance management, and ICT solutions as our tools. Simultaneously, we are embarking upon the fundamental policy review, culminating in a Public Works Act to refresh and clarify the mandate of public works and to establish a platform for sustainable development. Specialized services, let me address some of the specialized services provided by public works. The Prestige portfolio. The Prestige Property Management Unit is now centralized in the DG's office and is undergoing restructuring with the view to greater specialization. The key here is to improve the management of the customer relations and communication with the departments and the individual clients. The following actions have been taken in respect of the parliamentary villages. We have revived the Parliamentary Villages Management Board. The initial phase of the renovations in the parliamentary villages was completed during May and June. The second phase will start during the recess period in September. We have identified furniture that need to be replaced, and these are being diverted. Upgrading the security system is underway. A development plan has been drafted and will be put to the Parliamentary Villages Management Board for consultation and implementation. In respect of the ministers and deputy ministers' official accommodation, I requested the SIU to investigate all the prestige projects involving excessive cost escalations. As a result, the director of the Prestige in Pretoria was charged and dismissed. In case of Cape Town, we will report to Parliament once the SIU completes its investigation. Costs for renovation of state-owned houses have now been capped at 30% of the market value of the property. The inner city regeneration, it's a branch soon to be renamed Special Planning and Development. It has broadened its scope to include metros other than Tshwane, as well as towns, district, and small rural towns. This also supports the broader outcomes of the rural development and improve local government, and it gives impetus to the impending integrated urban development framework announced by the President. The provision of the state land, assets are held by public works in support of the service delivery obligations of the government and other social imperatives such as land reform and habitable human settlements. During 2013-14, 128 hectares was approved for the release for human settlement. A further 22 properties were identified for the release in the current year for human settlement. The other programs are the accessibility programs, and in summary, let me indicate that there are 5 key areas in this policy statement: the creation of the 6 million work opportunities, and the operational of the property management trade entity. The third one is the operationalization of the governance, risk and compliance branch, and the fourth area, in consultation with all the stakeholders, particularly the wider public works family in the provinces, it's a policy review culminating in the act which I was talking about. The fifth area, in partnership with our entities, the Charter Council and the relevant stakeholders, a renewed and a sustainable or sustained program of action to transform the built environment, especially the construction and the property sectors, which are still the old boys clubs as part of the second more radical phase of transition to democracy. This must include support for the black and female contractors and property practitioners, as well as the production of the black professionals and the artisans in the built environment. In my 2012 budget vote, when I'm concluding, I likened the Department of Public Works to a patient in the ICU. In 2012, in 2013, with some improvement, I said that we now stopped the bleeding of the patient and it was being stabilized. Today in 2014, I can inform honorable members that the patient is fully stabilized and responding well to medication. We confidently expect that the patient will be discharged in the very near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The next speaker is the Honourable Martins. Order, honourable members.
Honourable House Chairperson, Honourable Minister of Public Works and Deputy Minister of Public Works and other ministers present, Honourable members, esteemed members of executive councils, valued Director General and senior officials of the Department of Public Works, esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I should like to thank all those who congratulated me on my deployment as the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Public Works. I should also like to reassure all those who expressed concern at the image of the Department of Public Works that it was a department plagued by instances of corruption and mismanagement. I would like to assure them that the Minister, the Deputy Minister, the Director General assured the Portfolio Committee on the 8th of July 2014 that they remained committed to the robust implementation of the department's turnaround strategy. The turnaround strategy includes the stabilization of the department by ensuring proper controls and systems, strengthening the internal audit unit, addressing weaknesses in the procurement and supply chain management. Furthermore, the Ministry and the Department have worked closely with the Special Investigations Unit to investigate irregular leases and projects. This joint effort has to date resulted in disciplinary hearings, the suspension and the dismissal of some officials. Legal proceedings are also underway to recover monies wrongly paid out by the department. The Portfolio Committee on Public Works at the same meeting committed to assist the department to fulfill its mandate and to improve on its service delivery record on the basis of a critical but constructive oversight relationship. We do not underestimate the task at hand, but believe that if the Ministry, the Department, and the Portfolio Committee can work together to achieve the common objective of service excellence, we will be equal to the task. The Portfolio Committee on Public Works has the responsibility vested in it by the rules of Parliament and the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa to oversee the Ministry, the Department of Public Works, and the entities that fall under the remit of the department, namely Agrima South Africa, the Construction Industry Development Board, the Council for the Built Environment, the Independent Development Trust. The department in its turn is mandated to provide land and accommodation to national government departments and institutions. It is further mandated to manage such land and accommodation, as well as act as the custodian of the national government's immovable assets. The department also has the responsibility to provide strategic leadership to the construction and property industries and to coordinate the implementation of the expanded Public Works program. The Minister of Public Works is further authorized to carry out functions related to land and accommodation through the State Land Disposal Act number 48 of 1961. The Portfolio Committee in its turn has the added responsibility to exercise a monitoring role that contributes towards the improvement of the quality of life of all South Africans, also to facilitate interdepartmental and intergovernmental relations at all levels of government, and to acquire knowledge from international best practice in order to improve service delivery to South Africans. The budget allocation to the department for the 2014 financial year is 6.1 billion. The four entities reporting to the department serve as its extensions and assist it in delivering on its stated mandate. There are no budget allocation increases to the baseline between the 2014-15 and 2015-16 financial years. The allocation increase to the baseline for 2016-17 amounts to 159 million in support of the following areas: 74 million for the expanded Public Works program, social sector grant, 65 million for the EPWP non-state grant, 10 million for the EPWP integrated grant to provinces, and 10 million for the EPWP integrated grant to municipalities. Over the 2014 medium-term expenditure framework period, baseline reductions of 1.3 billion have been effected in the following areas: 650 million on infrastructure projects in the immovable asset management program, 150 million on non-core goods and services items in all programs, 26.2 million on compensation for employees, 150 million on transfers to the property management trading entity, and 308.3 million on the EPWP. These reductions are largely as a result of underspending in the department's infrastructure budget. Spending on infrastructure decreased from 1.3 billion in 2010-11 to 676 million in 2013-14. The decrease of infrastructure budget was due to the reprioritization of funds to provide funding for the turnaround program. The department's overall infrastructure budget has been reduced by 220 million in 2014-15, 180 million in 2015-16, and will be decreased by 250 million in 2016-17, mainly to provide for reductions to expenditure that Cabinet approved. In the immediate future, the nub of the issue will lie in how the department will deal with the issues raised in the Auditor General's report. The report highlighted a number of issues regarding the financial performance of the department and the property management entity for the 2012-13 financial year. The department received a qualified audit opinion for the 2013 financial year. It will thus be prudent for the department to address the issues raised like the following. The Auditor General being unable to determine whether the department implemented and maintained an appropriate provisioning system, and if the award of 32.2 million followed supply chain management prescripts. The department also materially underspent 489.4 million under Program 2, immovable asset management, which impacted on the meeting of its infrastructure delivery objective. The Auditor General further noted challenges in the department's risk management, including the non-consideration of information technology risks and fraud prevention. The internal audit unit was not adequately resourced and effectively identify internal control deficiencies as well as make recommendations on corrective measures. Allegations relating to transgressions in supply chain management, potential fraud and financial misconduct, as well as a probe into alleged abuse of urgent and emergency procurement procedures and the utilization of favored suppliers. It is a grave concern that the property management trading entity has received a disclaimer of opinion for the third year in succession. This is simply not acceptable. The Auditor General noted that incomplete processes existed in the department for identifying and recognizing all irregular expenditure incurred by the property management trading entity. Hence, uncertainty related to the disclosed irregular expenditure of 874.5 million. The aforesaid incomplete processes resulted in the Auditor General being unable to determine if the property management trading entity implemented and maintained an appropriate system of identifying irregular expenditure. It is thus important to ensure that these issues be resolved to ensure that the department's main account receives an unqualified audit opinion in the 2014-15 financial year. Honorable House Chairperson, the Portfolio Committee has noted with appreciation that in drafting its strategic plan, the department has taken into consideration the government's policy priorities, the election manifesto of the ruling party, the African National Congress, the National Development Plan, and the 2014 Medium-Term Expenditure Framework. In its oversight of the implementation of the strategic plan, some of the critical areas that the Portfolio Committee will keep a close watch on are the following: the upscaling and implementation of Phase 3 of the expanded Public Works Program to create 6 million job opportunities through the Community Works Program and the expanded Public Works Program by 2018-19. The increased contribution that the department has to make towards poverty alleviation through the provision of decent work and skills development in its role in addressing youth unemployment through the National Youth Service, infrastructure development and school building program under Strategic Integrated Program 13, which focuses on the eradication of mud schools and unsafe structures. The department reported that the expanded Public Works Program Phase 3 is on course and continues to create work opportunities for the unemployed, especially women, youth, and people with disabilities. It was reported that this program performed well in both phases 1 and 2 of its rollout. Its stated objectives include: 1, increasing the Department of Public Works' participation in the implementation of the expanded Public Works Program by March 2015, ensuring that 3,500 youth participate in the National Youth Service Program in the department, creating more than 1 million work opportunities for the 2014-15 financial year, and creating 140,000 EPWP work opportunities on provincial access roads projects. Honorable Chairperson, the Ministry further reported that the department's turnaround strategy is on track. Evidence cited of this was the appointment of a permanent Director General, reducing the number of persons in acting positions and employing individuals with the requisite skills and qualifications. The prudent focus on the department's governance and supply chain management continues, and progress is being made on the finalization of a reliable and accessible immovable asset register. The state land reconciliation with the deeds office records was completed by the end of the past financial year. The Department of Rural Development and Land Reform and Human Settlements participated in the process of creating the asset register. Provinces also participated in this process. In regard to the department's policy mandate and legislation, we note that the department derives its policy mandate from the following adopted and draft policies. The Department of Public Works White Papers of 1997 and 1999, the Construction and Property Sector Transformation Charters of 2006, the Department of Public Works' Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment Strategy of 2006, the Property Management Strategy on BBEE, Job Creation and Poverty Alleviation of 2007, and the Green Building Framework. The Portfolio Committee on Public Works will be ready to carry out its legislation mandate when the department introduces the Expropriation and Built Environment Professions Bills and other bills to Parliament. The role of the Portfolio Committee is not only to pilot and pass legislation through Parliament, but also to track the impact of laws and regulations made and to deal with the unintended consequences that legislation may have through amendments where necessary and desirable. Honorable Chairperson, in conclusion, the Portfolio Committee should like to recommend to the Ministry that the key performance areas as stated in the Department's annual performance plan be redeveloped to be more specific, measurable, and time-bound by March 2015. The review of the 1997 and 1999 white papers be processed as speedily as possible so that legislation that outlines the department's mandate and its role as the regulator and catalyst of transformation in the built environment and construction industry can be completed by the end of the current financial year. Honorable Chairperson, I thank you. The ANC supports the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Mbu.
Chairperson, Honourable Ministers, Deputy Ministers, heads of stakeholder organizations present, the MECs that are here, members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen. The Department of Public Works probably ranks as one among government departments that have the worst public image and poor public perception in the country. In his opening remarks on the day he was elected as chairman of the Portfolio Committee, Honourable Ben Martin said and observed that the department really is sick and it needs urgent attention, much like the Department of Home Affairs was several years ago before it was turned around. Honourable Martins refers to the then Department of Home Affairs as the Department of Horror Affairs before it was turned around. Minister Ngesi, your department also has nicknames. One of them is that it's the Department of Nkandla, which you also know. The other one is that it's the Department of Public Jokes, because of the many jokes that are peddled around this department. Chairperson, this department is very crucial in this post-apartheid period because it's a custodian of public assets comprising immovable property, land, and other assets, and the department holds this in stewardship on behalf of the people of this country. It is therefore important that the department carries out its mandate in an efficient, effective, and transparent manner as expressed in its vision, which states that it's committed to being a service-oriented department that delivers value and contributes to the national agenda for social and economic development. End of quote. Honourable Minister, when you were appointed to this department, you made an effort to present a turnaround strategy in order to transform the department into an efficient, effective, and transparent entity of government. However, Minister, your strategy failed to clearly outline how the turnaround strategy would be implemented. Your strategy also did not spell out how the compilation of an asset register of publicly owned infrastructure would be completed. It is the DS view, therefore, that the department has made little progress in making practical steps to restore stability. This is an indication of the lack of decisive leadership, direction, and implementation in the department. Chairperson, the Auditor General's report for 2012-2013 reviewed the dysfunctional state of Minister Ngesi's department. The department was awarded a disclaimer of opinion, which is the worst possible outcome in an audit exercise, particularly for the PMTE for the third year in a row. This means that for 3 years, the department rendered its main function, which is the management of government-owned property, unauditable. The AG also awarded the department with a qualified audit opinion for, among others, a lack of evidence for reported irregular expenditure amounting to over 32 million rands. Furthermore, the AG also stated that the department could not provide sufficient evidence for the AG to determine whether the more than 2.6 billion in irregular expenditure reported by the PMTE was valid, accurate, or even complete. The minister thus clearly failed to rehabilitate this entity. Chairperson, perhaps the biggest failure of the minister in 2013 was his handling of the Nkandla Gate scandal. He, along with the other so-called security cluster ministers, devoted much time to trying to justify the obscene expenditure of over 245 million rands of public funds on the president's private homestead under the pretext that they were upgrading security features of this compound. The minister, according to the public protector, went so far as to provide incorrect information on the legal authority for and the extent of the works at the president's private residence. Minister, you also used excuse after excuse to delay what ended up being a whitewash testing report on Nkandla public. We discovered through court papers that there was never any real basis for classifying this document as top secret. We demand an explanation for you, Mr. Minister, as to why you did this in the first place. Honorable Chairperson, the DA is determined to ensure that the ad hoc committee to consider the Nkandla report is rehabilitated or re-established as soon as possible. We simply cannot allow a situation for the President or the Minister and his cabinet to avoid answering very serious questions about their involvement in what is by far one of the greatest scandals of our democracy. Honourable members, questions also remain regarding the spending of taxpayers' money, Minister, on the upgrade of ministerial housing. For example, Minister, recently you refused to provide answers of a breakdown of public money spent on 35 ministerial homes when we posed a question for a parliamentary question to you. He claims that such details would compromise security. This is nothing more than an excuse to effectively limit proper oversight of members of parliament. Just last year, without citing any such concerns, you revealed, Minister, that 50 million rands was spent on a house in Cape Town for Rural Development Minister Guglen Quinty. 10.67 million was spent on the overhaul of a house earmarked for the use by the then Deputy Minister, Transport Minister Lydia
Order,
Chiku.
honourable members.
Just under 5 million was spent on upgrades to a house for the then Minister for Agriculture and Forestry, Tina Jumat Peterson. We will continue to do everything possible to shed light on this politically motivated spend. We have already successfully done this before, Minister. Perhaps the Minister could also use this opportunity to provide you with the answers that he would not provide us in writing when we ask for them. Chairperson, honourable members, the NDP has been lauded as providing the shared vision, strategic vision for unlocking this country's potential and competitiveness in the global scheme of things. And so the question that I want to ask is, what role does the Department of Public Works play in the implementation of the NDP? There are at least 9 chapters in the NDP that reflect on how the department can contribute to the successful implementation of this important roadmap to South Africa's economic success. For example, in Chapter 3, Minister, it talks about providing decent employment through inclusive economic growth. In this regard, the NDP places strong demand on the department to move away from providing only work opportunities to full-time equivalent jobs by the year 2020. With regard to education, training and innovation, the department's programs could be integrated with other government programs like adult basic education, further education and training, skills development and artisan training, etc. Chairperson, the DA supports the NDP as it dovetails with our party's plan for growth and jobs, which we published in 2012, which presented the backbone of our party's plan to reform this country's economy by giving those left out of the economy a chance to participate in the economy. The DA believes that the economy can grow at least by 8% with the right combination of policies and in turn create up to 6 million jobs, real jobs, by 2025. Chairperson, if the economy were to grow by 8%, we could double the national budget, meaning that there would be more money for things like housing, basic services, education, infrastructure, and small business support. It is common knowledge that the President and his ANC government have not delivered on their promises. The President promised to create 5 million jobs, but poor leadership of the economy has meant that since he had assumed the presidency in 2009, only 439 jobs have been created, but more and more people are out of employment. This, in the same period, unemployment has increased from 30.4% to 35% in terms of the expanded definition that includes those that discouraged job seekers. In his State of the Nation address, the President stated and referred to some far-reaching interventions that his government would undertake to stimulate the economy, including the implementation of the NDP in order to address the triple challenges. However, what the President didn't mention was that the full implementation of the NDP will be almost impossible because it's frustrated by some of the alliance partners, COSATU and the Communist Party. I can see this represented, very heavily represented here, who have expressed disagreement with the market-driven notion of the NDP. Chairperson, the department plans to the total of 113,744 immovable assets in 11 regions during the 2024
Order, honourable members, order.
The question I would like to pose to the Honourable Minister is, how is he going to accomplish this, given the fact that over 500 positions are not filled in the department? Is there enough capacity in the program to carry out this mammoth task? Minister, the department's legislative mandate is primarily governed by the Immovable Asset Management Act of 2007 and a number of legislation. The department, therefore, has no single legislation that specifies what its mandate is. It is, therefore, important that a single legislation that encompasses all these other acts is passed as soon as possible. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Sonti. Order, Honourable Members.
Ndiyawabulisa onke amalungu. Honorable Chairperson, the Economic Freedom Fighters does not agree with the budget vote for public works because we believe public works does not have systems in place to monitor the finances that it received from the National Treasury. Just recently, public works dismally failed to account for money that was used for upgrading of the private residence of President Jacob Zuma. The EFF and majority of South Africans do not trust public works because it is not a reliable and trustworthy department. Now, the only thing which the EFF can potentially support in public works is the expanded public works program, the EPWP. We can support the EPWP if the following is achieved. Number one, all people who are employed in the EPWP should be employed on a full-time basis and should be paid a minimum wage of 4,500. Number two, all people who are employed through the EPWP program should be linked to a training program which will make sure that they have good skills for good jobs and lives. Number three, EPWP programs should be directed towards building and maintenance of townships and rural infrastructure such as road, community parks, dams, and other basic services. Honorable Chairperson, we believe that once these aspects are addressed, we will build a society of people who work for a particular purpose and proper salary. The second issue that we will address here is that public works should begin to build or buy its own facilities and buildings to house government offices. As things stand, government is housed by private companies, and in most instances, government pays more rent than is required. Majority, it's not all police stations are owned by private companies and public works. Majority, if not all police stations are owned by private companies and public works only pays rent into use police stations. That will happen one day if the private companies evict police station from their private properties because the private company wants to use the building for other purposes. The EFF believes that government should build, buy, and own all the offices that are used for government purposes. After buying a building and owning all the government buildings and offices permanent basis and not use labor brokers, the cleaners and the security guards employed to clean and look after government buildings and offices should be employed on a permanent basis with proper wages. Outsourcing of these critical services compromises and undermines the workers, particularly the cleaners and security guards. Government should begin to build capacity to perform its own functions. Moving forward, public works should do the following: establish a state construction company to build all government infrastructure because the private companies fix prices and are paid more than they deserve. The way we will build state capacity and not depend on private companies, which in most instances charge higher prices than is normal. Honorable Chairperson, since 1994, this Parliament has not passed expropriation bill, which is responsibility of public works. Instead of focusing all their energy on the luxury of politicians, public works should table the expropriation bill so that this Parliament can pass it into law. The Constitution of South Africa requires that an expropriation act should be passed to empower the state to appropriate for public purpose and public interest. If the expropriation bill proposes expropriation without compensation, the EFF will support it and will support even constitutional amendment to effect constitutional changes. For now, the EFF does not support the budget vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Sitole. Order, Honourable Members. Order.
Honourable Speaker, in opening, I would like to thank the Minister of his excellent effort in beginning to turn around this once failed department. The Minister inherited a department in total disarray. Mismanagement, corruption, cadre deployment, and general incompetence were orders of the day. In 15 years, Chairperson, the mismanagement entrenched the road, and it is testament to the character and tenacity of the minister. What is turnaround strategy is now bearing fruit. Well done, Minister and the DG. The IFP welcomed the Minister's drive to assemble the specially trained and dedicated civic servant, not cadre deployment as it was happened before. However, there remain many challenges. The slow pace of Special Investigation Unit in completing their report on fraud and corruption in the department is holding back the implementation of positive departmental change. The road must first be cleared out before one can begin afresh. In 15 years of disclaimer by the Auditor General are evidence of just how bad the department road is and highlight the urgent necessity for the clean sweep of all that is wrong in the department. The continued extensive of our consultant does not augur well for the establishment of strong, loyal and dedicated cooperative workforce or for dedicated work ethic. We hope the Minister will be gradually phasing out this type of workforce. A department that does not know its own asset is a department that will never reach its goals. We call upon the Minister to place special emphasis and urgency in getting the department asset register in order. On the 10th of October 2013, the Minister requested the assistance of the Auditor General in investigating a report related to President Zuma's Nkandla homestead. These reports were then classified by the Minister as top security reports, and we unavailable for public scrutiny. The Minister was protecting his president, and when the public protector report on Nkandla was released, the Minister was silent. This refusal to disclose and later to classify the report, Honourable Minister, is a stain on your appointment, and we accordingly can, upon you, release this report. EPWP is a program which has merit and which we support, but it still failed to address the issues of unemployment because of its membership drive project. Minister, we also want to see decent and proper inner city regenerations, and we want to see this rolled out to all of our major cities, as you have been saying today. Honourable Chairperson, despite the above challenge, we hope to see this Minister and his department overcome. We are pleased with to see a turnaround, a new departmental culture developing, and looking forward to watching its progress in a future functioning department. The IFP egameni labantu baseMzantsi Afrika sithi siyakufisela ngqongqosho ukuthi indlela esiyiqalile nendlela ehambayo sengathi njoba inamagoludla nje inamagquma kodwa wenze konke okusemandleni ukuthi kuyasebenziswana ngoba kunabantu abazohamba bahambe i-department ngesikhathi osithathe ngakhona ibeka khona phezulu bayicekele phansi inkatha iyayisupporta le department.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Order. The next speaker is the Honourable the Deputy Minister of Public Works.
Honourable House Chairperson, Honourable Minister Nxesi, the Chair of the Portfolio Committee, Ben Martins, Ministers and MECs who are present, thank you very much for coming to the budget. Chairs and leaders of the entities that fall under the Department of Public Works, Honourable members, particularly of the Portfolio Committee, colleagues and all guests. Honourable Mubu, he seems to have left. You know, we supply the very statistics that he was supplying around how much we've spent of public money on the homes of ministers, of the presidency and so forth. He gets from us. He's not getting them from anywhere else. He's getting from the Department of Public Works. But when in questions, the DA asks us also then to supply the home addresses of ministers and deputy ministers, of judges and others, then we refuse to make that public. Let me remind the Honourable Mubu in his absence that Clive Derby-Lewis is sitting in prison as we speak because he was busy collecting the home addresses of prominent politicians. So, I mean, it's completely irresponsible to suggest that we should do this or that we're withholding information that is of public interest. But anyway, let me move away from that. Perhaps one of the best known commitments made in the ANC's election manifesto is the commitment to create 6 million work opportunities through the public employment programs over the next 5 years. Now, in some of the media comment, encouraged by some parties sitting on my left here, there's a whole lot of cynicism about this. First of all, it's suggested that this is the only thing that the ANC and ANC-led government has got to say about employment creation. Nothing could be further from the truth. There is a whole wide range of employment-creating programs that are underway, led by this government, directed at the critical objective of overcoming unemployment. They include the reindustrialization of our economy, the R1 trillion infrastructure program, local beneficiation of our natural resources, using state procurement to ensure much greater localization of things that we buy as the state. Minister Nzimande will attest to this important emphasis on skills training for the productive economy, etc., etc. However, the expanded public works programs are a critical component of addressing this huge problem that we've got of unemployment linked also then to poverty and inequality. It's the budget allocation to the expanded public works program in this budget of public works is the second largest component of our budget. It amounts to close on 2 billion rand for this year. Most of it, I hasten to add, will be transferred to provinces and municipalities and also to the non-profit sector where the actual implementation of many of these programs needs to happen. Chapter 3 of the National Development Plan. Honourable Mubu, I have read the National Development Plan. Honourable Mubu is, of course, not listening, but that's okay. He'll say we aren't answering his questions, but he's not listening. Chapter 3 of the National Development Plan absolutely correctly envisages the huge upscaling of public employment programs, specifically the expanded public and community work program. Yes, there are some cyclical features to unemployment in South Africa, not least at the present, following the 2008, in my speech I say economic crisis, but let's give it its real name, capitalist economic global crisis. Since 2008, obviously there's been an impact also on our economy, and that's impacted on employment. However, as the National Development Plan, which I've read, Honourable Mubu, as the National Development Plan correctly observes, even at times when there's been sustained growth, touching 5 and over 5%, through the second half of the 1990s and far into the 2000s, we failed to make a serious dent in our unemployment situation. We never came under 20% of unemployment, even in the narrow definition of unemployment. So clearly there's something systemic, something structural, and I would add something capitalist, or specifically capitalist in the South African reality, that is creating and reproducing notwithstanding growth levels, serious crises of unemployment. And because our unemployment crisis is systemic, it's structured, it's hardwired into the way in which we are path dependent as an economy, our responses themselves have to be transformational. They have to be anti-systemic, they have to be radical. Radical in the real sense of the word. They must go to the roots of the problem. Now, an important part of a radical response is precisely the significant upscaling of our public employment programs, notably the expanded public works and community work programs. But if the problem of unemployment is not just cyclical, then our approach to these programs also cannot just be a question of temporary make-work arrangements while we complacently wait for some market-driven growth that will somehow serve up full employment in the relatively near, or for that matter, any future. So the Honourable Sonti is absolutely right in many respects in regard to the way in which he's seeking to support the expanded public works program. We need to think of it differently from just its make work and temporary, because somewhere in the near future the problems are going to be solved of unemployment. Now, the beginning of April this year marked the start of the third phase of the expanded five-year phase of the expanded public works program. Back in 2003, in the midst of a decade of growth, but persisting crisis levels of unemployment, the NEDLAC convened the Growth and Development Summit. Many colleagues will remember that. And it was at that summit that business, the unions, government, and the community sector agreed that we needed, amongst other things, a massive upscaling of public works programs. And that was the birth of the expanded public works program, and phase one kicked off in 2004. It had a target in that first five-year period of 1 million work opportunities. And that target was hit with a year to spare, within 4 years. In the second phase of the expanded public works program, which ended at the end of March, so from 2009 to 2014, we surpassed the target of 4 million work opportunities. Those were achieved. Now, in some quarters, these public employment programs are viewed very skeptically. We're told that they're not real work. We know which parties talk about it like that. They're just work opportunities, temporary make-work arrangements. The leader of the DA, Helen Zille, Premier Zille, led her party in a march on the ANC headquarters, Luthuli House, earlier this year, against the ANC's electoral commitment to 6 million work opportunities. And the march counterposed, or sought to counterpose, expanded public works jobs with so-called real jobs. Now, what is a real job? You know, it's very ironical that the very same party, that argued against work opportunities and the expanded, in 2013 opposed any increase in the minimum wage for farm workers, arguing that such an increase was unaffordable. But the farm workers' minimum wage in 2013 was actually lower than the minimum wage declared for public employment expanded public work participants. Very ironic. And what's more, not only are those workers not permanent, the majority of them, particularly here in the Western Cape, are temporary contract workers employed seasonally. So what's the difference between your real jobs and expanded public works jobs? What is the difference? Is the difference that they get exploited, farm workers, by capitalist bosses, and public employment employees are doing useful work, creating assets and providing services to poor communities, as the Honourable Sonti correctly said we must be doing. But let me move away from party polemics, and as South Africans, let us take pride together, even in the DA, and pride in what we are doing as global innovators on the front of public employment programs. You know, with chronic unemployment now, not just in South Africa, but in many developed parts of the world. In Spain, in Greece, the youth unemployment rates are actually even higher than our own crisis levels of youth unemployment. And so many of those countries are actually turning to South Africa to learn what it is that we are doing in terms of providing employment through these public employment programs. In particular, the ILO, the United Nations our International Labour Organization, is particularly following and propagating and proposing. Now, the cynics, like the Honourable Mubu, of course, are downplaying what we're doing and failing to note, and perhaps it's our own failure as government as well, we're not sufficiently promoting and branding the really important achievements. Let me just mention a few. First of all, nowhere in the world that we are aware of, there are many countries that are now employing or have been having public employment programs of one kind or another. They are all, typically, as far as we know, from one department with one line budget. In South Africa, every municipality is participating in this program and has budget. Every province is active, including the Western Cape. The Western Cape, in some respects, is doing well on this, and we salute them for that. City of Cape Town is doing very well. We're very proud of it. Not as well as some other cities, but doing well. Most national line departments are also involved in the program. So that's unique. We cut across all spheres of government. We're using all of our budgets, or most of our budgets, to implement public employment programs. South Africa has been a global pioneer in terms of applying public employment programs to environmental services, working for water, working on fire, working for wetlands, and so on. The Working for Water program has possibly saved as much as 400 billion rands worth of water in our country, okay, according to a CSI report. It's not recorded in the GDP. We dig iron ore out of the ground, Kumba does it, export it out of the country as dirt, and we count that as a contribution to the GDP, but the iron ore's gone. But when we save 400 billion rands worth of water, we don't even count it in the GDP. It's another, Honourable Minister Nzimande, it's part of capitalist accounting. Real value is not counted very often in GDP. So the GDP 8% that they're talking about is the DA. That's the kind of thing. Dig the stuff out of the ground, export it to China, and count it as a plus to South Africa. But real services, real assets, particularly for poor communities, are neglected. The Working for Water has also cleared 2 million hectares of alien invasive plants, prevented the loss of, we think, 71% of grazing in South Africa. None of that is recorded. Working on fire. In one budget year, 2008, saved the forestry industry 3.7 billion rand. Okay, I think it was in Mpumalanga when there were serious forest fires there. And they had a budget of 123 million. Again, the 123 million counted in GDP, but the saving of 3.7 billion didn't feature. Okay. In the social sector, South Africa is the only country in the world which implements a whole wide array of public employment programs in the social sector, including adult education, early childhood care, school feeding schemes, school safety and homework provision, very nice program in Gauteng, by the way, home-based care programs in the height of the, well, in the midst of the HIV/AIDS epidemic, at a time when there was some denialism, unfortunately, even from the side of government. This home-based care operating under the radar to some extent was a critical lifesaver in providing survival prospects to communities, poor communities affected by the epidemic. And I could go on. Critically also, and again relatively uniquely in the world, we are involved also in working very closely with the non-profit sector, okay, through the community work and non-profit organization sector. We're working closely with NGOs, faith-based communities, and one's very pleased to note that there are two reverends in the audience, one from Tembisa, the other from Kwandebele. We are working very closely with these community-based organizations and community leaders, and this is an important counterweight against the dangers of excessive bureaucratization that tend to happen in any government, not just in South Africa, but here too as well. And therefore, these public employment programs also offer us an opportunity, a possibility of developing a different kind of relationship between government and communities, to break away from this problematic notion of a delivery state, you know, delivering to a kind of passive clients, communities. This is where we're building again, Honourable Mubu, on the National Development Plan notion of an active citizenry. We're saying to communities, become collective co-producers, collective co-owners of community services and assets. Let's build them together. Let's maintain them together. Don't burn the library, own it. Don't burn the library, maintain it. Of course, we're not renouncing our responsibilities as government with our resources and budget. Let us do it together. Instead of having this top-down delivery state delivering to a passive citizenry. Very important aspect of public employment programs. Now, there's how much time have I got left? Is it counting down or up? It's counting up. So I've got 3:14 left. Okay. No. There are numbers of lessons that we want to learn. Going forward into phase 3. Going into phase 3. One of them, it's important to understand, and I'm particularly looking at the Honourable Santi again, because I was inspired by her passion for, which we share, for these expanded public and public employment programs. You're absolutely right to say this. But we need to understand that there are 3 kinds of priorities that we want, that we typically want with public employment programs. The one is to provide basic income support to poor households, okay, as part of trying to complete an incomplete social security net. If you're over 18, if you're not a mother deserving of a child support grant, if you're not a retired person on an old age pension, you're in a huge gap. You might be unemployed or underemployed, but you're not covered by the Social Security. So these programs are partly about completing the social, and again, Chapter 11, Honourable Mubu, Chapter 11 of the National Development Plan. Good, he's read the Chapter 11, I'm pleased to hear that. You will have noticed that it sees these public employment programs not as not real jobs, but as an important component of Social Security. But secondly, there's the other important thing. What happens to the participants when the program comes to an end? There's no reason why the program should come to an end, by the way, and many programs don't. But when it's in the construction area, for instance, as opposed to maintenance, then the footbridge gets built, the clinic gets built, and then what happens to the participants? And you're right to say, what are the graduation? The bureaucratic language is exit, but I prefer, what are the graduation possibilities for participants? And then thirdly, there's the other important criteria. As a result of these projects, is there a net improvement in the developmental reality of poor communities?
Please wrap up, Honorable.
Ah, okay. I thought you said, I'm reading off there.
No.
It's very hard because we don't have time. Okay, I'm wrapping up. So we need to get these things pull in different directions, and it's not always possible to do all of them equally. Okay, but when we discuss it in the Portfolio Committee, we'll have more chance. So in short, I haven't had time to do the other things that the Minister committed me doing, legislation and entities. I apologize for that, but I'm passionate about this public employment programs, as you can hear. Last November, Cabinet agreed to set up a presidential Public Employment Coordinating Commission so that we properly coordinate our efforts in terms of these public employment programs and link them to the training that we're doing and through other line departments, that will link them to the CETAs and so forth and so forth. And therefore, this budget, a huge chunk of it is going towards these programs, is an important contribution to realizing the important target which we are confident of meeting, of 6 million work opportunities over the next 5 years. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Honourable Fintan.
Thank you. I'll start off by rolling up instead of wrapping up. Good afternoon, Chairperson, and all the ministries here present. We're talking here about a department which is charged with the responsibility of custodianship and management of government immovable assets. But on top of that, this department has to reform and radically improve the construction sector of our economy. It's against this background that we as the UDM are astounded when this very department is consistently surrounded by allegations of fraud and corruption, charged with the responsibility of taking care of the assets of the country. Now, against that background, also add to the fact that the staff members of the department are hardly sufficient to discharge the functions of the department. Consequently, the department continues to be the kind of failure that the minister had the honor, if it was an honor, to admit that it is indeed a department that is in crisis, or he says it was. This staff inadequacy specifically has got a negative impact on the service delivery of the department. Disclaimers, the financial mismanagement, hence the turnaround strategy. It's against this backdrop that the UDM suggests the following corrective measures, a blueprint if you like. Critically important staff positions should be filled in as a matter of urgency, otherwise you're limping. Incentivize so that people can be attracted to work for the department. Don't keep on saying that the private sector is taking people away from you. That is not helpful. Create incentives. You need to have appropriate staff. Here's a critical area. Some experienced building contractors were left out when the CIDB was created. It was a cruel move. We are aware of that history. Consequently, those people are still suffering. They are an asset living within South Africa. They are crying for an opportunity to be part of it and play their role. The department is urged to reconvene another construction endeavor to bring these people back into the fold. The CIDB is just not serving the purpose for which it was established in the first place as a result of this great omission. As a result, the 827 billion set aside for this term will be just a pie in the sky for these people. I am talking specifically about Africans. They are left out of the equation. I want to stress that point.
Thank you. Thank you. Honorable Kuneva.
Achtbare Voorzitter, the Honourable Minister himself said that Public Works is a patient in ICU, and at least the bleeding has stopped and the patient stabilized. But Honourable Minister, the patient is still in ICU, and that's a problem. The further problem is that the minister or the doctor himself is still in ICU. He's got a sickness. They call it nkandlasitis, because he doesn't know what's going on. He's got some fever, because then it is a secret issue, then it's not a secret issue. So Minister, you've still got many problems to attend to when it comes to public works. Ek wil vir die agbare Kronen sê, agbare adjunkminister, jy het 'n baie ongelukkige voorbeeld gebruik om regverdiging te kry hoekom miljoene rande gespandeer moet word om ministers in wonings te kry om hulle veiligheid te waarborg. U gebruik daai Clive Dabeloos. Nou ander agbare minister, ek wil nou net moenie nou daai probleem nie. Kom ek nou vandag vir u sê. This is 2014, not 1992. I can go on Google Earth now and I will see the exact locations where all the minister or the deputy ministers are staying. Exactly. Yes, no, the problem is you don't have to go around and ask questions to determine an address. En ek wil vandag vir u sê, openbare werke misbruik veiligheid om belastingbetalers se geld te mors, nie vir veiligheid nie, maar vir luksheid van ministers en adjunkministers se wonings en die opgradering daarvan. En kom ek gee vir u 'n voorbeeld. Die vorige minister of adjunkminister van landbou, Dr. Pieter Mulder, hy het vir 5 jaar in Acacia Park gebly. Acacia Park is mos 'n sekuriteitsgebied. Is nou nie so luks nie, maar hy het daar gebly. Hy het niks oorgekom nie. Die gebied word gekontroleer en opgepas deur die polisie. Hoekom moet daar 'n spesiale, afsonderlike plek wees vir ministers en adjunkministers? Hulle is mos ook lede van die parlement. Hulle kan in daardie bestaande plekke kan hulle bly en hulle kan net so veilig opgepas word, maar hulle gaan nie so luks leef nie. Hulle gaan nie op die vet van die land kan teer op die belastingbetaler se geld nie. So om veiligheid te wil gebruik as 'n verskoning om miljoene rande te spandeer vir die luksheid van ministers en adjunkministers is 'n mite. Dis onaanvaarbaar en dit is ook die probleem met Nkandla. Want veiligheid word misbruik om swart ekonomiese bemagtiging the black enrichment elite te maak. Dit is die probleem. Ek dank u.
Baie dankie. Honorable Mishu.
House Chairperson, honorable members, for the current 2014-15 financial year, the Department of Public Works received 6.1 billion rands, and of this 6.1 billion, 245 million has been allocated to lease payments. The ECDP is concerned about money that's being wasted through unauthorized, wasteful and irregular expenditure and deviating from Treasury regulations, particularly in the area of lease agreements and payments. The Public Works Department's laudable initiative to review the validity and cost effectiveness of all government property leases has exposed several deficiencies. These include space that was unoccupied but paid for, space occupied by non-governmental entities, discrepancies between the space occupied and what was paid for, marked divergences from market rates, procurement through inappropriate non-competitive procedures, missing or invalid lease agreements, and unsubstantiated payments to landlords. Former Auditor General Terence Tombembe criticized government and public servants over, and I quote, the dire situation that has seen a weakening of the pillars of governance protecting South African democracy. The accountability of the results is not taken as seriously as it should be. Bad results are regarded as a norm, and when people get a disclaimer or qualified reports, little happens to them to show that this is unacceptable. That is the culture that we need to be concerned about, close quote. In July last year, Deputy Minister Jeremy Corini was widely reported as having said that the department is in a near dysfunctional state because it lacked capacity. Because of this lack of capacity, a number of line departments had been inclined to try and set up mini departments of public works out of frustration, close quote. An example of this lack of capacity is evident in Deep Slot Police Station, which has been standing incomplete as a white elephant for many years. We are aware that in October last year, the department said it is expected that the police station will be completed by August 2014. 7 years after the construction began. Maintenance and the construction of public infrastructure such as clinics and schools has been the department's biggest weakness over the years. And the ACDP wants to know how this 6.1 billion rand will be used to address this weakness. Chairperson, the ACDP would like to know if the department has filled all the required specialist skills vacancies, which include chartered accountants, property lawyers, property evaluators, and property managers, and when the highly anticipated SIU report into alleged irregularities in the Public Works Department Procurement Division will be released. And lastly, Chairperson, the ACDP welcomes the successful implementation of the turnaround strategy that the Minister has spoken about, and we are hoping that that is going to ensure that even the patient that is still in ICU, although he has stopped bleeding, will finally run and do the job. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Honourable Jafta.
Honourable Chair, the Minister, let me observe the protocol. The AIC regards the Public Works as a very important arm of the government to fulfill its mission. It is why the AIC acknowledges the strategic plan and budget for the department. We're doing that, Honourable Chair, knowing very well that one of its mission, the department, is to create jobs and alleviate poverty through expanded public works program, and also bearing in mind that when the EPWP was launched in 2004 by the government, the aim was to halve unemployment and poverty by 2014. Has that been met, Honourable Chair? However, the AIC feels that the creation of jobs and poverty alleviation should be coupled with more meaningful training, which will enable people to work or create jobs, therefore reducing the high rate of unskilled workforce provided in the EPWP. The EPWP must not encourage unskilled and underpaid labor in our communities. I therefore appeal to the members of the Fifth Parliament heading this department, Honourable Minister, to create decent jobs for South Africans which conform to the standard of living today. Honourable Chair, the AIC has noted that the number of jobs said to have been created in this program do not reflect the actual figures working presently. that is, do not reflect the people, that is, reflect the actual figures of the people working presently, but the total number of the people working and those once benefited in this program. I'm saying that, Mr. Chair, because in most municipalities, the number of jobs created has dropped drastically as compared before. The reason cited generally for that being the decrease in the budget for the EPWP. We then cannot say this program can assist towards the national goals than creating dependency syndrome to our communities. As already stated above, it must not only be the number of people trained that the department is proud about, but the number of people working too as a result of training provided. The AIC is therefore calling for the department, that is for the establishment of the dedicated unit to coordinate, monitor and evaluate the progress in the implementation, in the implementation of the EPWP by the department. The reason why we...
Thank you, Honourable Member. Thank you. Honourable Mjobo.
Thank you, Chairperson. Right. Thank you, Chairperson, Minister and Deputy Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Ngomhla ka-7 kuMeyi kuwo lo nyaka, abantu base-South Africa abawu-11 million baphuma bawuvotela i-African National Congress. Ngifuna ukuthi-ke abalenzanga iphutha ngiyabaqinisekisa ngokuvotela i-African National Congress. It is now widely accepted that the development and acceptance of infrastructure is the key to the stimulation of economy, which is sorely needed in these tough economic times. While it is important to focus on the development of small contractors, particularly black contractors, it is even more crucial to focus on women in construction. The construction business is a male-dominated industry, and the majority of big contractors go to companies owned by white males. 20 years after the installation of a democratic government, it cannot be correct that old ways of doing things are maintained. There are about 12,000 commercial active construction companies in South Africa. The involvement of black people in the construction improved between 2012 and 2013 in terms of available reports. The Construction Sector Charter Council reports that in 2013, 65% of large companies achieved a BBBEE contributor status of between level 1 to level 4, compared to 60% in 2012. Level 1 represents the highest level of BBBEE contributor of the BBBE scorecard, and this is what all companies should strive for. Often you find women-owned companies graded very low, below grade 5, and they get the smallest jobs. Also, these companies often do not have funds to sustain operations and also confronted with challenges of getting paid on time. Therefore, the companies are set up to fail. The key to address the imbalance in the construction industry is to promote the National Contractor Development Program. The NCDP is spearheaded by the Construction Industry Development Board in partnership with the National Department of Public Works. One of the important objectives of the NCDP is to increase the number of companies owned by black people, women in particular, as well as cater for the disabled and the youth in certain image grades and categories. Scorecards reflect improvement in the area of black women ownership. In 2013, 20% of scorecards confirmed black women ownership exceeding 30% compared to 19% in 2012. The President of the Republic of South Africa, the Honorable Jacob Zuma, in January 2014 signed the BBBEE Amendment Bill into law, and eventually which made the construction sector codes obligatory for all companies involved in infrastructure delivery and other construction-related projects. In all the spheres of government, it is hoped that the legislation will provide a further drive towards transformation within the construction industry. One of the methods used to develop contractors is enterprise development. This is the method which targets contractors in the grades between 3 and 6. And here contractors are awarded contracts through the competitive bidding process using appropriate procurement strategies within the competitive bidding environment. This is in keeping with BBBEE legislation and the preferential procurement framework. One of the key elements of contractors and skills development is mentorship. However, Chairperson, mentors are hard to come by, as these must be registered with the South African Council, the project and construction management professions, whose requirements for the registration of mentors have been impossible high, made it difficult for experienced candidates to qualify as mentors. The challenge is that many of the professionals working in the construction industry do so without formal tertiary qualification and professional registration. The SACP-CMP recognized this challenge and hence in partnership with the University of Pretoria, they developed a training course of mentors. Once candidates pass the course and meet the necessary requirements, they will be able to register as mentors. Through the expanded public works program, the NDPW devised the Vukuphile program to assist emerging contractors. We need to stimulate economic activity in the most economical depressed areas, and these normally are found in rural areas. It is also where one finds the majority of women, as men usually migrate to the urban areas in order to make a living. Rural development and interdepartmental collaboration across all spheres of government is crucial to achieve development. The second aspect we must touch on in this budget vote is that the role that this department must play to develop all trained artisans and strengthen the expanded public works program in its third phase. It is the phase in which the skills development part must be greatly improved. This skills development part can be greatly improved if the budget is improved and linkage of cooperation can be initiated with the key skills development departments such as education and training and labor. The trade union movement and private industry in the built environment sector has an important developmental role to play in this regard. Collaboration and partnership from the cornerstone of successful implementation policy. Through partnership with the Construction Education and Training Authority, the department has managed to use the budget well and increase the number of participants in the artisan development program to 229 in the current year. This successful pilot is part of the directorate in this department that is seldom spoken about. The department has Human Capital Investment Directorate that is focused on implementing Chapter 9 of the National Development Plan to ensure a skilled and capable workforce to support an inclusive growth path. It is ready to do this by working together with the Department of Higher Education and Training and Labor. The department brought in skills graduate professional through programs such as Young Professionals, Internship, Learnership, Artisan Development Program. A total of 2,857 beneficiaries have participated in the department's skills development program over the past 5 years, with 81 young professionals, 2,227 interns, 328 learners, 56 management trainees, 33 artisan trained, and 132 bursaries for study in the built environment are being sponsored. These programs go beyond providing bursaries to students and include comprehensive support programs, experiential training opportunities, and provide jobs opportunities for technical graduates. The Young Professionals Program is a highly successful training and skilled program and has managed to professionals register 52 young professionals. 28 young professionals have been absorbed into vacant position department. The portfolio committee was pleased to note that at the end of the last financial year, the minister awarded 82 bursaries to students that are currently enrolled in courses related to the built environment. In conclusion, Honorable Chairperson, ngaphambi kuka 1994 abantu besifazane babengakwazi ukuma kulendlu yowisomthetho, kodwa namhla ngenxa ye-ANC siyakwazi ukuma. So ngiyabaqinisekisa abantu beMzansi Afrika ukuthi egameni le-African National Congress yi-ANC kuphela ekwazi ukutshintsha impilo zabantu baseMzansi Afrika. I thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Masango.
Sihlalo ngongqoshe sekela ngongqoshe amalunga eParliament ngokumuntu okhona la lochana. Chairperson, the DA doesn't determine the minimum wages for farm workers, but the Department of Labor, the minister, determines the minimum wage. So if there is somebody to blame, let's blame the Minister of Labor and the ANC. Chairperson, today we are debating the budget vote of a department that is well known for all the wrong reasons. It is the department that is regarded as a milking cow for the tenderpreneurs of this world. It is a get-rich-quick scheme for high-profile government officials and their connections. It also seems to be the come-and-go ministries. In the last 5 years, this department has had 3 ministers. Honorable Minister, we welcome your turnaround strategy as we did with your predecessors who also committed to change this department. And we hope that this time we'll see a difference. Minister, you have to deal with corruption hands-on in this department without fear or favor. The minister must lead by example. But Minister, this requires that you spend more time tackling the problem of this department and less time defending or protecting the president on Nkandla. That will be better. Chairperson, the President in his State of the Nation address emphasized the construction of infrastructure as a priority to this new administration. If the government is committed to grow the economy, then infrastructure is crucial. The high rate of unemployment is unacceptable in South Africa. Therefore, we need to grow the economy by 8% in order to create more jobs. Government have failed to create the 5 million job promised by the President in 2009. The government cannot fail the millions of unemployed people in South Africa again this term. It is time to deliver, and that time is now. Chairperson, infrastructure development is key to economic growth and job creation. However, the Department of Public Works has failed to spend its allocation of infrastructure in the year 2012 and 2013 financial year, thus slowing the pace of economic growth and denying many South Africans an opportunity to get job. For failing to spend on its infrastructure budget, the allocation for an infrastructure budget for this department has been reduced for the next financial year, and it is being allocated for other programs that actually are not creating jobs. This is another opportunity missed to grow the economy, create employment opportunities for young people, and to lift the staggering percentage of our population out of poverty. The expanded public works program is a program aimed at ensuring the creation of job opportunities and the provision of training for unskilled, marginalized, and unemployed people. The EPWP projects cut across all spheres of government, and some provinces and municipalities are still struggling to spend money on EPW projects due to incapacity. The DA support the EPWP work opportunities as it helps in alleviating poverty in our country, but it cannot be regarded as a real employment. It is temporal and is unsustainable, and it does not afford our people the financial growth they need to lift themselves out of poverty, and again, the first step on the ladder to prosperity. While we support the targets set for employment opportunity under the EPWP, we must be mindful of the quality of work rendered and the value for money. It is simply not enough to celebrate the achievements of reaching employment targets against the backdrop of poor service delivery and the regression of our economy. The EPWP should create work opportunities that will also grow the economy to create more real jobs. Chairperson, my travels across the country have served me in forming the opinion on EPWP workers, whom I constantly find either sitting alongside their respective places of work or sadly they are asleep. Despite the department saying they are monitoring these projects, there is always no one supervising them. It is tea time the moment they arrive at work, and after that, it is lunchtime until they go home. That's the biggest problem. This is a wasteful and fruitless expenditure, especially taking into consideration the number of service delivery protests across the country. I don't think the government wants to create another social grant, this time through the EPWP. Too many people are dependent on social grants. South Africa wants a hand up, not a hand out. Although, the same applies to the incentive paid to provinces and municipalities. The incentive must be paid based on the project in progress or completed, and most important, on the quality of work done, and not only on jobs created. Chairperson, EPWP projects are used by some officials and politicians as an opportunity to employ their relatives, connection, or card-carrying members of the ruling party. And this defeats the purpose of ensuring that the most vulnerable families actually get employed and are then able to put a plate of food on the table. Another problem in the EPWP is training. There are so many youth who have been on training for so many years. It just doesn't end. They will be taken from one area to another area, but nothing comes of it. Some months they will be idling at work, doing nothing except playing. Some of those trainees have completed their training, but cannot get employment in the private sector because their training certificate is not accredited. It does not make sense, economic sense, to train youngsters and after completion they join the rest of the unemployed youth and end up rusting at home again. Chairperson, with regard to CIDB and the CB, I went through their strategic plan and their objectives and targets are questionable. You know, I'm saying this because it's just reports, compilation of reports, non-compliance. And you ask yourself, abantu bazodla ama report noma bazodla ama compliance. And sometimes I don't even understand compliance 75%, 92%. It's either you comply or you don't comply. You can't be 72% or 92% compliant. It doesn't give sense. The CIDB until now has not done enough to grade contractors from grade between 4 and 6 to grade 7 and 9. Most of the contractors are still between grade 2 and 6. The same applies, Minister, to the CBE. It also needs a clear vision because transformation is just too slow from that department. And one wonders whether they are committed to ensure that they go to universities and make sure that those people are upgraded. Fraud and corruption in construction industry impacted negatively on contractors, and collusion restricted new entrants and upgrading of other companies. Chairperson, despite all the corruption level against the department, the Auditor General report for 2012-2013 has painted a disastrous picture of this department. Given the fact that there is a turnaround strategy in place, and we will hope that the department, in attending to the matters of emphasis raised by the Auditor General, we await annual report for 2014.
Conclude, Honorable.
Okay, 2013 and 14, to see if the department is moving in the right direction. But, Honorable Minister, government employs officials to do their job. It cannot be fair that the same officials must employ consultants to do their books, to get their books in order. It is their jobs, and they are paid to do their jobs. We can only do better if every one of us does the work properly and to the best of his or her ability. Ngiyathokoza.
Honorable Adams.
Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Minister Ngisi, Deputy Minister Cronin, other ministers present, Minister Nteko, Deputy Ministers, Minister Nzimande, Deputy Minister Malamela, honorable members, ladies and gentlemen. Chairperson, I'm not sure, but I think, Minister Cronin, you have to give Honorable Masango some economic lessons or teachings or anything. Because with compliance, if he doesn't understand mathematics, if he doesn't understand percentages, I think we have to give him, Honorable Cronin, you have to gate him, or otherwise we should get him to a Politburo and educate him in a Politburo, Honorable Zimande. Chairperson, they are talking about, the only thing they are talking about, and it's a pity, it seems to me that the opposition suffers from Nkandla-nitis or Nkandla sickness. Of course, that's the only words they can get out of their mind. They haven't even got a plan to say, what is your strategy? What is your alternative plan? What is the alternative plan given that they are the opposition? That's the only thing they can talk. But they don't talk about Fulcon.
Agbare voorsitter, punt van orde. Ek wil weet of het toelaatbaar is dat die agbare lid my woorde kan gebruik en maak asof hy dit uitgevind het.
Jy het so gesukkel, die agbare lid het so gesukkel om die woorde uit te spreek, voorsitter, dat ek weet nie of hy weet of dit sy eie woorde was of is nie, want hy het gesukkel om het...
Jy het 'n gehoorprobleem.
So, voorsitter, Chairperson, the opposition are talking about corruption, but we don't hear about corruption in their own backyard in the Western Cape. Of nearly 400 million Fulcon. They say 400 million, Minister Nzimande, is nothing, Chairperson. Now, I mean, if 400 million rands worth of projects have been stopped, and you say it's nothing, then I wonder what do you mean by saying it's nothing in terms of corruption? 400 million rands of worth of projects of Fulcon. And they say now it's a reputable company that's just ran into cash flow problems. That's the excuse that they've got. A reputable company that ran into cash flow problems. Now I'm saying to you, there's unbuilt schools that stand there, unbuilt houses that stands there, and you say it's nothing, Honorable Mubu, through you, Chairperson. Now, I mean, my point is,
So corruption does not understand in your when it comes to the DA. Then they say, no, it's a reputable company that ran into cash flows. And the member of the DA say, no, 400 million, which is not even the Nkandla price, which is not even we can build. How many Nkandlas do you want us to build for 400 million? I mean, come on. The point is, they say, you say it's nothing.
Honorable member, let us allow Honorable Adams.
And you say it's nothing. And you-
Allow the speaker to be heard.
They talk about consultants. They talk about consultants, but since they took over in 2009, they spent how many millions on consultants? How many millions did they spend on consultants? Because why they know for a fact that if they don't use consultants, Madam Zille is going to call them to report at 4 o'clock in the morning. They have to go to 7 Well Street or Leeuwenhof to go and report 4 o'clock in the morning. But
Point of order.
Chairperson,
Chief Whip. No, honorable members, let us allow Honorable Stenay.
Chairperson, thank you. There's no member called Madam Zille. We've had a ruling on this House before. It's Premier Zille, and that is the ruling that we've had on premiers in the past. Thank you.
Okay, Honorable Adams to that.
Chairperson, the Premier is not a member of the National Assembly. She's a member of the NCOP, not of the National Assembly. So, in terms of the rules on that, she's not a member of this House. Chair, she's not a member of Parliament. She's a member of the NCOP, a special delegate, Chairperson. I think the honourable member must go and learn the rules of Parliament as well. Chairperson, John Robin quotes, and I want to quote.
Point of order. Chairperson, the point of order is that there have been rulings in this House before that when we refer to premiers of provinces, and this includes the ANC premiers, that we refer to them by their title as premier. We don't call them madam.
Honorable Adams, they've been ruling on this matter.
Chairperson.
Honorable members, let us allow him to proceed.
Chairperson, John Rabban quotes, and I want to quote, and it says, if you don't design your own life plan, chances are you'll fall into someone else's plan. And guess what they have planned? So, Minister, go on with the plans that you have planned. Because if we're going to allow the DA to plan for us, we must guess nothing. They're going to plan nothing, but only disaster, as they are called in some parts, disastrous alliance. That's what they are called. Chairpersons, since his appointment as Minister of Public Works in October 2011, the Honourable Minister Tulas Tembalani Nesi has openly stated that this department was critically ill. He had the courage, Honourable Nubo, to say that there's something wrong in this department, but I'm going to tackle it. I'm going to tackle it. He did not sweep it under the table as you say it's nothing. He had the courage to say, we will tackle it. The ANC's got the courage to say, we will tackle it. Recently, the minister reported that the department is in the ICU, and he has reported again now, today, that the department is out of the ICU, and that it is improving. In the recently favored medical parlance, one can say that the department is critical but stable, and the minister has alluded to that, Honourable Mubu. You see, the problem with the DA is that they want everything to be unstable and not stable. Because why? What's good for the country, what the ANC does is not good for the DA. That is right. What the ANC does good is not good for the DA. But it must be very clear that the department did not magically land in the ICU. In fact, it may never have landed in the hospital in the first place. It landed in the hospital and the ICU because a very important step was taken. This ruling party, ANC-led government, put its foot down. They've put their foot down, this ruling party, ANC government. It said, enough with this, enough with corruption and fraud. Who signed the proclamations of the SIU? This President Jacob Zuma, Honorable Jacob Zuma, as the head and also as the President of the African National Congress. This minister has taken the step to say that I don't care who you are, I don't care what you are, I don't care if you belong to the same party as I am. If you are corrupt, I will deal with you. Not to say it is a reputable person that has run into cash flow problems and to hide them from corruption. We'll deal with you. If you are corrupt, we'll deal with you. What can you prove? Have you dealt with corrupt officials in the Western Cape? No. No. You protect them, you say, because they ran into problems. That's why schools are not being built, houses are not being built. There on the Cape Flats, it's projects that is being run through EPWP programs of the Western Cape government and the city of Cape Town, which is standing idle in Manenberg, in Q-Town, in Athlone. It's standing idle because you did not pay the contractors, and the contractors are waiting for their money. And you did not do your compliance over the contractors, Honorable Masangu. You did not do the compliance. You know, you were talking about the DA, and I'm telling to you about the DA. Don't come and talk to me about other things. I'm referring to you about your party, the DA. Enough with corruption and fraud. Diagnose this patient as suffering from corruption and fraud was the very first step. We have diagnosed it. Dr. Tulas Tembelani Nisi has diagnosed it. He has diagnosed it and he has taken steps to get rid of it. What have you done? Placing it in ICU and providing the right medicine was the second, and we can already see the difference. Already the difference are evident. The difference are evident, Chairperson. If I must say to Honorable Mubu, he himself has agreed in the meeting, in the portfolio committee meeting, that yes, there is a difference. But today, because he sees this chief whip here, he knows that he must now play to the music of the chief whip and of the DA.
Chair, point of order.
Order, Honourable Member. What's your point of order?
The point of order is that I think the Honourable Member is not telling the truth. He must apologize.
No, Honourable Member. No, Honourable Member. That's not a point of order, sir. Continue, Honourable Adams.
We talk of the difference that the turnaround strategy has brought. It has made a difference, and it's still going to do another difference. It's still going to do more difference. In the first place, the department has been stabilized, as the minister has just alluded here. But you see, you must take off your blinkers to see that and stop walking through life with blinkers and opposed to everything that is happening good in South Africa. Just because the DA did not initiate it, now it's not good. But don't worry, we will carry on as the ANC to initiate the good things, irrespective of what you think and say as the DA. In the second phase, efficiency has been enhanced, and in the third phase, it will become sustainable as part of government's wider developmental mechanism, a mechanism that drives socio-economic development for our people. As we are discussing the budget of this department, the importance of this turnaround cannot be understated. At its foundation, this turnaround is about making certain that the 6.1 billion that government has allocated for public works in this financial year is not wasted. The property portfolio that Public Works manages, it's huge. Minister referred to 30,000 land parcels on which we have 107,000 buildings and structures. It is difficult because the whole built environment, construction and property management sector does not always play an honest game. Instead, we notice over many years how some of the companies in this sector colluded with one another to fix prices. And who has brought that collusion to the fore? That was the ANC government.
Order, Honourable Member. Yes, Honourable Member, why are you rising?
Well, the former National Party member...
Honourable Member, can you get to what is your point of order? Honourable Member, what is your point? Why are you rising?
I want to know whether the former National Party member will take a question.
Honourable Member. Order, Honourable Members. Order, Honourable Members. Honourable Member. The Honourable Member wants to know if you can take a question.
He wants to have a... Yes.
He's prepared to take a question from you.
I'll take his question.
Can you tell us more about the scandals about Marius Fransman in the province?
Chairperson, I think the honorable member has got Marius Fransman's cell phone number, he's got his address, he can go and drink coffee with him at the provincial legislature and ask him about his scandals. I'm not Marius Fransman's spokesperson. So do me that favor. But the honorable member, and I know why he is asking that question, Chair, and I know why he hasn't got the guts to go over to Marius Fransman. You see, because if you are party hopping, soos hulle in Afrikaans sê, soos 'n springkaan. What do you call a springkaan? If you are party hopping, then you haven't got that stability. You know, you don't know which party you must belong to next year or the year after that, because you are party hopping. Jump, 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 jump.
Order, honorable members. Order.
That is,
Order, honorable members.
that is party hopping. Chair, it is difficult because this ANC government has brought out and has taken these companies to the Competition Commission for this collusion that's happening. And Chair, this ANC government is not afraid. As we say, we are not afraid. We don't sweep corruption under the carpet. We deal with it. We've got experts that deal with it. We've got surgeons that deal with it. We've got Dr. Blade Nzimande. We've got, I want to propose that we've got Dr. Tul Tembelani Nisi, we've got Dr. Bhuti Manamala, we've got all those doctors that deal with this corruption. You don't deal with it, so we are dealing with it. Instead, we notice over many years how some of the companies in this sector colluded with one another to fix prices. They are highly skilled at doing these things. They use specialists in the fields of property law and property investment to often twist contracts in ways that squeezes profits out of deals for anyone outside their ring of corruption. The department does not have enough specialists to compete on an even ground with such people. And when the playing field is unequal, all kinds of fraudulent and corrupt possibilities arise. And some government officials are not so innocent either. And we have dealt with these government officials, and still, on a daily basis, these government officials are being dealt with. They are not being shifted from northwest to wherever, to wherever, to wherever. You look down here at your province in the Western Cape, they are taking officials from everywhere to come to the Western Cape, kicking out the people that works there. They are importing officials in there because they must dance to the tune of the DA. They must dance to the tune of the madam and play what and dance to what the madam is playing. They must dance to the tune of what the madam is playing. Together with these specialists, they become property wolves that tear the inside of the youth property portfolio apart into a field where the money disappears into the pocket of a few already rich people, while the masses do not profit. But as we said, the party that rules this government has deployed a leader who put a team together who's committed to stopping these corrupt practices. This team has started by getting the immovable asset register sorted out. We know now that what we owned. We know now what we owned. Comrade, Honorable Mube, I nearly said to you, comrade, but let's leave that. You're going to become one of these days. And the warning is out to those who, during the heyday of the apartheid regime, took government property and continue to sit with it illegally. Operation Bring Back is soon to be turned into Operation Take Back. Unless you bring back what is not yours, this is a caring government. You are kindly reminded, give it back or it will be taken and given back to where it belongs. The Minister and his team further announced the creation of the Governance, Risk and Compliance Branch to drive anti-corruption. We're driving it. The Minister is the driver behind this big truck to drive that. Behind this big truck to drive that. And I think because you've got no one that can drive anything from your side. No one. No one. No one. This branch has as its core the implementation of the National Development Plan. And you stand here and you talk about National Development Plan, and then you must get in Umkhabulo a lecture on sections of the development plan, which you don't even know. which you don't even know. Well, if you read it, why do you twist it? You must then say what it is. Don't twist it. Or if you don't know what it is, we can arrange for you. Like I said, we can ask Honorable Dr. Blayden Zamande to give you a lecture in the Politburo to teach you about what is happening. Chairperson, the National Development Plan priority to improve service delivery. The branch will make sure it identifies areas where there is a risk of fraud and corruption to counter it even before corruption can take place. Where it cannot do that, it will detect cases for investigation and where possible resolve such cases with disciplinary action or even prosecution and litigation where needed. Like you promote Falcon. Like you promote Falcon with 400 million.
Honourable Member, your time has expired.
The ANC support this budget vote. I thank you.
Thank you. I now call upon the Honourable Minister of Public Works to respond to the debate. Order, Honourable Members.
Thanks, Chairperson. We have noted the weaknesses raised by the honourable members with regards to a number of areas where we have to deal with the gaps. We will certainly deal with those areas, the financial controls, the systems. In fact, that's what the turnaround is all about. The issues of the disclaimers, and a number of aspects in relation to the turnaround and so on. So we will deal with those issues. We have presented our plan and the budget, and we think that the portfolio committee members will have to hold us to account on what we said we are going to do. Leave all the politics here to playing into the gallery and so on. Babu Stole siyabonga. Kuyabonakala ukuthi uyazi ukuthi sisukaphi siyakuphi uyazi ukuthi sisukaphi siyakuphi nalomnyango siyabonga ref ACDP kuyabonakala ukuthi ubuloku sibhekile ukuthi siyakuphi kwenzakalani to recognize. Others do not want even to recognize, but what is those who have eyes can see where we come from and where we're going. But where you got it wrong, Babu Stol, is that the report, the Nkandla report was released into the public. People were even doing comparisons of the departmental task team report and the public protector report. Maybe inkinga nje it was not reported mhlambe zange ibhale kwilanga laseNatal mhlambe ke ngaba khona. Well, ilungu elihloniphekileyo le-EFF siyabulela ngokusichasa kule program ye-EPWP. Hayi kwezezinye ke ntombi funeka ukuphinde ujonge lamaxwebhu wethu besixoxa ngawo kwi-portfolio committee ngoba uthetha ngathi ubungekho mhlambe zange uve basasithini ngathi nje zange udukile kanguve nje uba kwakuthiwani pha kwi-portfolio committee ngoba zonke izinto sasizithethe wawukhona umamele ngoku yasothusa ngoku le nto ethetha kodwa ke sakunyamezela sakufundisa uzawuthi ufike wena siyayiqonda imeko yakho. Honourable Mobu, what is pleasing is that all the information you're quoting is from us. We gave it voluntarily. All this information, that is pleasing. It shows that we are accountable. And let me assure you, we will disclose all the information which is required relating to all our expenditure and everything. But let us be clear. Those houses do not belong to ministers as their personal properties. Those are government houses. Their maintenance, their upgrade is done by Public Works, not on the demand of the ministers. And even in that, we have said there's corruption. It's us who said that. We are investigating. And I must tell you, corruption knows no color. Very interesting. A lot of corruption in the houses is in the Western Cape, and most of those companies are led by white people. Here in the Western Cape, those companies. And I want to say that. And Honorable Mobu, I'm very disappointed by your input when you even misrepresent and quote things which are not there in the Public Protector's report. In fact, some of the things you quoted, they are not there. What is even embarrassing is that being who you are, you choose to say nothing about the transformation and in the construction
Honourable
sector.
Minister, let me just take this point of order. Yes, Honourable Member.
Thank you, House Chair. During the course of the interjections, one of the members at the back there said unamanga, which translated means he lied. It's unparliamentary to accuse a member of lying, and I'd ask you to make a ruling on that.
No, honourable members, order, honourable members, order. Honourable members, let us maintain the decorum of this esteemed extended public committee. Let's respect one another so that the Minister can conclude the debate and respond to your input that you have made in the debate.
As I close, Chairperson, what is even embarrassing, Honorable Mu, being who you are, you choose to say nothing about the transformation in the construction and the property sector, which is still mainly white, just because you have to impress your party bosses. Instead of talking truth about those issues, given your background, instead of talking about the issues which are affecting the majority of the South Africans, you decide to be the spokesperson of the few minority privilege. We will be patient. We're going to deal with these issues together with all of you. But we are saying to the members, they are criticizing the DPW on the Auditor General's report of the previous years. They must judge us on the upcoming audit if there is any improvement. And we are saying turnaround is not an event, it is a process. That's why it's a 7-year plan. You're not just going to see results tomorrow, because these are systemic issues and we will have to deal with them. There are procedures which we will have to apply. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Order, Honourable Member. Members are reminded that the EPCs on agriculture, forestry and fisheries and public enterprises will meet at 16:35 in the old Assembly Chamber and E249 respectively. That concludes the debate and the business of this extended public committee. The committee will now rise.